Well, thanks everyone for joining us for the Is Business Ownership Right for You webinar and boot camp. And my name is Mike Halpern. I'm going to be the host today. I will be joined in order by Adam Biedenbender, who's the VP of Franchise Development and Sales for CertaPro Painters. And then Kelly Kruger will chime in, and she's a senior funding expert with Benetrends Financial. And then we're going to wrap up with Earl Gelino, who is a 25-year franchise owner with CertaPro. So very excited to hear about his journey. So let's jump right in here. So here's the agenda. My piece will be Is Business Ownership Right for You? Adam is going to handle leadership fundamentals and franchising 101. Kelly will discuss the financial fast track, and Earl is our business owner. We're going to do our Q&A at the end, so feel free to put any comments or questions in the chat, or you could just write them down and we will address those at the end of the presentation. So first of all, thank you guys for being here. I know your time is valuable. It's the summer, and we appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us today, learn about franchising, business ownership, CertaPro, Benetrends, etc. All right, so these are the folks that you're going to be learning from today. And here is a little bit about me. So I am a franchise consultant, coach, and broker with FranServe. We happen to be the largest franchise consulting network out there. I achieved a designation called Certified Advanced Franchise Consultant about 2 years ago. I've been in franchising for 24 years. I've been an investor in a franchise system, which was it was called a royalty securitization. That was with a restaurant brand. I'm a former multi-unit restaurant owner. I've been self-employed since 2006. I remember that because my oldest son was born in September of '06, and I started my company in June. So I took that big leap of faith and got into business ownership right when all the expenses started to pile up and I had a new mouth to feed. So I know what it's like for people making that entrepreneurial leap into ownership. I've provided buy-side advisory as a franchise consultant since 2020. So I've been doing this for 5 years. And prior to that, I was helping franchisors kind of grow their business. I am a podcast host. You can check out the Franchise QB podcast. I drop episode 83 tomorrow. I did have Mike Stone, who's the CEO of CertaPro, on the show last year, and our very own Kelly Kruger, who's with us today, was also a guest on the show. So check that out. You can learn a lot about franchising. On the personal side, I've been married for 21 years, two teenagers. One's going to be a freshman at University of Kentucky in the fall. My other one is a rising high school senior. And I was a Wheel of Fortune winner. I was fortunate enough to be a contestant back in 2022. That's what most people want to talk about, but you can hit me up after this. And you can go to YouTube and type in Mike Halpern Wheel of Fortune. You'll see my 2 minutes of fame. I wanted to put my email address here front and center. That's the best way to get in touch with me. So if you email me, that's the best way. All right, let's dive right in. Enough about me. We're going to talk about business ownership types. We're going to talk about business types, building a due diligence team, and taking 3 trips to the rodeo. Let's start with ownership types. I know that some of these slides are here. Let me move this. There we go. Okay. So we have the owner operator. The owner operator, you'll hear people in the industry refer to them as Chuck in a truck, Dan in a van. They're a sole proprietor with 1 or 2 employees. They are working in the business. They're leaving their W-2 to do this full time, to operate their business. They're in the trenches, they're in the field, they are the technician, they're doing everything for their business. So I think it's important to understand what ownership type you want to be. And sometimes there's some gray area between these categories, and sometimes that role changes. Earl can probably talk about that since he's been in the business 25 years. He can talk about his transition from one ownership type to the next as you scale. An executive owner doesn't have a W-2 generally. They have left and they are running this business full time. But they're mostly behind the laptop. So they're not involved in the day-to-day labor. Yes, they're going to go through training. They're going to show up at job sites. They're going to help with estimates. But they're primarily responsible for marketing, hiring and firing their employees or their 1099s, interacting with the franchisor and the franchise field staff, and running the business, but they're not necessarily in it on a day-to-day basis. The semi-absentee is generally a higher net worth candidate that's holding on to that high six-figure or seven-figure W-2. They're looking to diversify their income. They have time, but they're keeping their job, and they're hiring a general manager to take on the role that an executive owner would have, and they're managing the manager. Now, the full investor absentee are generally, seven, eight figure net worth people that are literally putting an org chart in place to run this business. So they're hiring a CEO, they're hiring a COO, they're hiring a CFO, they're hiring district managers to oversee managers, and they're just building out this big team to run the business so they don't have to. They might put in a handful of hours a month, but they're front loaded with labor. So if a franchise costs 200,000 to launch in an item 7, this one might cost, 400 or 500,000 because you are paying salaries to replace the time that you would invest in the business. So effectively, the management team is running the business. All right, so let's talk about business types. There's 4 primary. Those are independent, small to medium-sized business or SMBs that are startup. So it's literally the idea of launching a business from scratch. It doesn't exist, you're creating it. So you're coming up with the name, the trade dress, you're registering for the trademarks, you're figuring out, how does it operate? What employees do I need to make it work? How do I market it? Everything from scratch. This is the hardest ownership type because you don't have any guidance, you don't have any track record. The chances of success are very slim. That said, every franchise at one point was an independent SMB. So obviously there's a handful out there that make it and become franchise systems. But to start a business on your own is very risky and challenging. Then there's the SMB acquisition. I do a lot of work on biz buy sell, mostly franchise resale. So I rub elbows with a lot of people that are evaluating small to medium-sized businesses alongside franchise resales. These are generally a little less risky because it's a business. It's up and running. It's got cash flow potentially. It's got a team. So you just have to be really careful about turning over all the stones when you evaluate these. Some are great, some aren't. You need to make sure it's the right geography, it's the right size business. You're financially qualified to, put in an offer, and conduct your proper due diligence. So an SMB acquisition is definitely an attractive option for people that are out there. Now, it doesn't have the safety net and the framework of a franchise system. You don't have that peer network. You don't have a lot of the, value propositions that a franchisor brings to the table. Then there's franchise startups. The nice thing about these are you get the opportunity to pick your geography, pick your, hand select your brand, find an industry category you like, find a specific, franchise like CertaPro that you like, and you could do your proper due diligence on these brands, like understand the culture, understand, talk to guys like Earl, other owners that are in the system that are doing it, and figure out, what success they're having. So there's just a lot of things you can do. You can look at the FDD and see the financial performance. You can talk to owners. There's a lot of good validation you can do in a startup. Franchise resales are great. This is an operating franchise. So the successful acquisition is signing a franchise agreement with the franchisor. So the franchisor still must approve the candidate to become an owner. They sign an asset purchase or stock purchase agreement with the selling franchise owner, as well as potentially a lease if there's a lease involved. So there's a couple moving parts. Franchise resales can be great. Just like with SMB acquisitions, you just have to be really careful, do your homework, make sure that what you're buying is what you think it is. Because there are circumstances where, sales dip off when the owner leaves. So sometimes they'll stay on for 6 months or 12 months. Sometimes they won't. So, if you're investigating these types of acquisitions, like get a really good team around you, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But those are the 4 primary types of businesses that you can evaluate. Okay, so this is the team. You really need to build a great team, regardless of what category of business ownership you're exploring. Kelly is our funding specialist today. That is step one with anyone looking at business ownership is figure out your capabilities, figure out what you're comfortable with. Kelly's going to do a deeper dive into a few different funding options, but this is day one, conversation one I have with any client that is evaluating ownership is, really understand what you're comfortable with, what you're capable of. And let's get that from a bank or a funding specialist because that's where you have to start. It's like the analogy is real estate. You wouldn't go out and start shopping for homes without going to a bank and having a bank approve a potential mortgage up to a certain amount. And it's up to, $500,000. And okay, let's look at homes that are 500,000 or less. You wouldn't go looking at $2 million homes if you don't have the capacity to do it. Same thing in business ownership, like really understand what that debt service is going to look like. They're going to evaluate your, a lot of different criteria to qualify you. But that's day one, step one, figure out your funding. And then at that point, you can get into your search. This is what I do. I'm a franchise consultant, broker, and coach. It doesn't have to be me, but you should have somebody that has a deep expertise in, business, whether it's a business broker for an independent or a franchise consultant, broker, or coach, if it's a franchise system, someone that understands FDDs, has relationships with franchisors. I travel around the country and I meet with franchisors. I look at their training facilities. I meet their leadership team. I talk to their franchise owners. And then I take that knowledge and I bring it back to my candidates and my clients. And I say, look, here's why I like this one. Here's why I don't like this one. It's better than going on ChatGPT and saying, what's the best franchise in my area? You could do that and you might get a winner, but it's good to have someone that has boots on the ground experience, that has placed clients. Those clients are happy, they're profitable, that type of thing. So get an expert to help guide you through the 4,000, franchise opportunities and the infinite number of independents that are out there. Get a great attorney. If you're looking at franchising, a franchise attorney is critical. Don't just get a business attorney that your, family knows. Get someone that is intimately familiar with franchise law. They will be able to coach you through really evaluating the FDD. I want to make sure my clients, they may not be able to rewrite the agreement or change anything, but they will have a profound understanding of what they're signing, what their liabilities are, what their role is, and what the franchisor's role is. If it's an acquisition in the franchise space, you want someone that can write a proper letter of intent, someone that can write ultimately when you get through your due diligence period, that can write a good asset purchase agreement, and someone that's going to review that lease and make sure that everything's compliant because all of those documents are going to be executed on the day that you close. Have a great tax advisor, CPA for business formation, monthly books, tax advisory, critical. Like make sure you don't make a mistake up front. You can save yourself a lot of money and aggravation by getting a great tax professional. And then evaluation expert. If you're, evaluating resales, there's a lot of junk out there. So you really got to be able to sift through it, especially with, independent businesses and even franchise resales. What a seller wants and, what a buyer's willing to pay may be two different things. So get someone that can put a good set of eyes on the tax returns, on the P&Ls, and can give you a market value so you can make a competitive offer on the business. So build a team, really, really important. Okay, taking 3 trips to the rodeo. The idea here is that usually when people evaluate business ownership, specifically franchise ownership, it's the third time they look at it is when they make their investment. So new franchise owners will generally do their research ahead of time. Third time is when they'll make the investment. First time is really understanding what is franchising. Adam's going to touch on that in a little bit. Learn the language. What's the lingo of the industry? What's an FDD? What's a franchise agreement? What's an item 6, an item 7, an item 19? Is franchising right for me? There's people that are great fits for franchising that want a proven playbook and a system they can follow. And there's others that just don't want rules and they want to be able to do everything their own way. Probably not a good fit for franchising. So it's good to figure that out, the first time you look into franchising. Second time around, it's really gathering information and getting over the fear of being self-employed. Can I actually leave my job and go pursue this other business? And that's not an easy thing to do. I went through it myself. I remember should I really do this? It's risky. But, I think if you bet on yourself, generally it pays off. And the third time is like doing a deep dive on franchise systems, like engage with the franchisors, understand how they do client acquisition, what their unit economics are like. Talk to their owners, like understand operations, marketing, like really dig in and figure out, okay, culturally, this could be a good fit. Economically, it's a good fit. Personally, in terms of my time, seems like a really good thing. Or you withdraw your interest and then, look at other brands. Maybe you wanted something that had recurring revenue and this model didn't. Maybe you want something with higher average tickets, and this one didn't. Like figure out what is missing and then apply that to the next iteration of brands you look at. But generally by that time, you should have a pretty good sense if you're fit for being a franchise owner or not. Okay, this is my last slide. We are talking about taking action. So generally speaking, on a franchise startup, it's about a 90-day due diligence process, which moves at your pace. Meaning, I've had clients that have contacted me, and within 30 days, they were franchise owners. I've also had clients that have taken 6 months or more to go through the process of vetting multiple brands and making their decision. So figure out your pace and work backwards from when you want to launch. In a business like CertaPro, where there's not a brick and mortar element, maybe an office, but you don't have to build a building and have a construction project. By the time you're done training, you're probably open within 30 to 60 days. So figure out when you want your business to be operating and work backwards from there. Generally about 90 days to figure it all out. Engage with the franchisors or the sellers of the business. Don't be afraid to have conversations. I always tell clients, until you are awarded the franchise, and you sign that franchise agreement or docu-sign it and you get an invoice and you wire the fees over, prior to that, you can withdraw your interest at any time without any legal or financial obligations. So get in the game, get off the sidelines, jump in and start looking around. The next one's huge. That's what Earl's going to talk to us about later today. Validate with existing owners that are operating your planned ownership type. Like if you're going to be an executive model, don't validate with an absentee investor, because what you're going to do and what they're doing are very different. Find someone that's executing with an ownership type that you anticipate, and that's how you should conduct your due diligence. Have an open mindset. Franchises are awarded, they're not sold. The franchisor is vetting you just the same way you're vetting them. I get calls a lot from my franchisor partners that are like, your guy isn't showing up for our scheduled phone calls. They're just not the right fit for us. We need people that are responsible. They're going to keep their appointments. They're going to show up on time, because that's the way we expect them to treat our customers once they're an owner. So go through the process, understanding that they're looking at you just like you're trying to figure out what's the best one. So don't show up to the first call and say, sell me on why I should be an owner. Like it's a mutual collaboration. That's what makes franchise ownership work well. I mentioned bet on yourself. I mean, eventually you're going to have to take a risk, and it should be a calculated risk because you've got your funding lined up, you've done your vetting, you've talked to owners, you've done everything you need to do to say, okay, I can do this. And you're the one that makes the franchise successful, not the other way around. The franchisor, look at any franchise. You have a top performer that's crushing it, and you have people that are failing. Then you have people in between. So what separates those people? It's how good of an owner they are. Are they reinvesting in the business? Are they taking care of their people? Are they taking care of their customers? Are they like really collaborating with other owners? Are they doing all the things that they're taught to do? And that's on you. That's on you as a business owner, not the other way around. So keep that in mind. That is it for my piece. So I am going to pass this over to, I'm going to stop my sharing, pass this over to Adam so he can pick up from his slides. Thank you, guys.
Really, thank you, Mike. You're testing my my ability to share my screen. So let's hope.
If not, let me know and I'll share mine again. So
good. All right, I think that's it. Yeah, and a thumbs up if you guys can see.
Now you're going to make me look bad when I flub it, Adam. Thanks a lot.
That's my only aim today, is to not look the worst.
Success.
So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you again, Mike. That was fantastic going through that. What I want to talk about today are a couple of things, but we're going to start with fundamentals of leadership. The reason I'm starting here is really with any franchise you buy, certainly with CertaPro, what you're buying is a set of systems and processes. And as Mike so greatly put it, it's on you whether you're successful or not, whether you use those proven systems and processes. And a big part of that is leadership, right? specifically with our brand and the other brands that I've been a part of, how you lead and scale a team really makes the difference on whether or not you're a good franchisee or whether you're a really great franchisee. So I think that that's amazing. But first, before I get into the leadership, let me tell you a little bit about me. I've been in franchising since 2002, always on the franchisor side. Like Mike, I started and really cut my teeth in food. So I was with Quiznos back in the heyday, and on through to Dunkin' Donuts and a few other of the fast casual brands going through. And I only found CertaPro about 3 years ago. I'll be honest with you, I had heard the name, but I knew nothing of the brand coming into it. I came into, as a matter of fact, my first meeting with our CEO, Mike Stone, still thinking, and don't tell him this, but I still thought it was ServPro. I came in, I'm like, why is everything gold and not green? So I was quickly let to know that we're painters, not mold remediation, or water remediation, I should say. At any rate, I was blown away by the numbers that I saw in the franchise agreement. That really, coming from a food background, Mike, I think you could probably attest to this as well. It's a different ballgame, right? The service industry, the home services specifically, is just a completely different business model. Yeah, in my opinion, a lot better of a business model. The other thing that I'll say this now is AI is never going to take our jobs, and they can't paint houses, and Amazon's going to have a real tough time selling paint jobs as well. So we find some stability in that. But this is my family. My wife Daniela. We've been married for 13 years. 12 and a half have been amazing. I'm joking. And my children down there, which is Lincoln and Harper. Lincoln is my son with the long blonde hair. He's just turned 8, and my daughter Harper turns 11 this month. So lots of fun with them. On my spare time, when I do have some, I mountain bike. So that's a picture of me a few years ago, jumping way too high. I actually crashed on that very jump more than once, but the last time was my last time jumping, as my wife was there to witness that one and didn't like the sounds I was making or the concussion that I had. So now I focus on easier sports like jujitsu, and I just get my face smashed into a mat a couple times a week and try to learn from that. I did grow up in Denver, so I am an avid Denver Broncos fan, which does not go over well with the Philadelphia Eagles fans here in Philadelphia. So try to keep that to myself, except for one little tiny logo on my slide deck. So that's me. So 20 some years in franchising, but all on the franchisor side. But we're going to talk about leadership today in this first portion, and really to start with the role of leadership within yourself and within your organization. Success starts from the top, right? It starts from that leadership and setting the tone for your business. A lot of things that I like to do in terms of leadership role is I believe in leading from the top down. So I know that on my team, I've done every discipline that I have. So I've done resales, I've done new territory sales, I've done the marketing, I've done the resales, I've done the M&A, knowing that I can do all those things and then teach those things and help to scale my portion of this business appropriately with the right people in the right seats. I'm not an expert in any of those things. As a matter of fact, in my previous life, with those food concepts, I ran the real estate team. I also ran the design and construction team. I ran the IT team in one of those brands, which if you ask me for any IT help, it's going to be not great. But what I can do is lead a team of folks that do know how to do it. And that's the key in doing this, is you don't have to be the expert in each one of those. You have to have a little bit of knowledge to be dangerous, but really your knowledge has to be on how do I lead folks to do the things that need to get done, and how do I do that? And that's what fuels the growth, the culture, and the consistent performance of your team and of your business. So what are the traits that make a good leader? Well, vision is one of them for sure. Can you visualize what success looks like and how that team needs to be organized to be able to do that? Can you coach and empower your team to make the decisions that they can make? And if they can't make it, can you make those decisions in a fast manner where you're not slowing down the team or not slowing down the progress or momentum that you've created? Discipline. I talk a lot about discipline more than just with my kids. Motivation is really cool to have, and it's really nice when it happens, but it's hard to tap into that motivation all the time. But what's always there is discipline, right? We're disciplined to get up every morning. I'm disciplined to make it into the gym every day. If I had to wait until I was motivated to go to the gym, I would never go. So, really, the discipline to get in there and do that, it works the same for business. Accountability, it's one of our core values here at CertaPro, and one of the core values of my family for everything is to take ownership of what you did, take responsibility for your actions, and face the consequences, whether they be good or bad. That's something that a good leader does, and something that people will follow when you're taking responsibility, again, on the good and the bad. And then adaptability. That's just as it sounds. Never is anything ever a straight line. It's not a straight line from starting the franchise to being a successful franchisee. There are bumps and hiccups and forks in those roads. So you always want to adjust your strategy, take the feedback that you're given, and practice continuous improvement, and make sure that the next time you do it, you learn from those mistakes. Incidentally, franchising is big on learning from the mistakes. So we've made 33 years of mistakes here at CertaPro, which have got us to the system that we're at now. We're still going to make mistakes, but we're going to learn from all those mistakes, just like any good leader would. A big portion of leadership also, specifically as you're talking about managing multiple people within your business, is your time management and also prioritizing what's important in your business. So focusing on the business, not just in the business, or seeing the forest from the trees, oftentimes means taking a step back and seeing what you need to prioritize in your day in order to progress the ball forward. So structuring your day again around those high impact activities, and giving some of the other activities attention, but maybe down further in the day. It reminds me of a great book I read, and I cannot remember the author right now, but it's called Eat That Frog. The premise is on the priority management is taking the biggest thing, the most important thing, or the hardest thing on your schedule for that day, and getting that out of the way first, or eating that frog. So that's if you're looking for something that'll help you with that time management or prioritization, definitely recommend that as a read. Delegating tasks to capable team members. Kim knows all about that because I delegate almost almost all of my tasks to her, because she does a fantastic job and I know she'll get it done on time. But it does frees my day up as the leader to, again, take a look at the business rather than being in the weeds of it every single day. And then weekly planning and time blocking, staying ahead. That's one of the things that I learned early on in my career. And embarrassingly enough, it was again going to the gym. I realized that if I didn't actually put going to the gym on my schedule, I would never go to the gym, right? There was never enough time to get that in. So I now block time out for specific tasks, not just to go to the gym, but for maybe I'm taking 2 hours today to go back through some of the folks that had questions that I hadn't got to, or I'm taking an hour today to just do nothing but email and shut everything else down. Whereas today, I've shut everything else down to do a webinar, right? I blocked off this 90-minute block so that nothing is going to distract me from taking that task over. And again, oftentimes in that situation, it's the biggest task that I'm handling first. Building and casting a vision. I think it's so important when you're talking about leadership to be able to visualize where you want to go. And it starts with having those short-term goals, right? Is knowing where you need to get to today. Ultimately leading up to that either annual goal or that 5-year goal or whatever that is. You want to start with that end goal in mind, and then work backwards on your short-term and intermediate goals. Use the meetings and planning sessions with your team to keep everyone in line. Something that we're really big on at CertaPro is something we call a GS&R meeting. That's a goal setting and review meeting. And I use that with my team every single week. I meet with each one of them to make sure that their weekly goals are adding up to their quarterly goals, which are adding up to their annual goals. Now we talk about what tactics we're going to use this week specifically to get to those weekly goals, so that we're always moving that ball forward. I think Earl probably uses that in his business. I'd be disappointed if he didn't, but it's something that we have specific training on for our franchisees and our corporate staff to help develop them into better employees, better workers, and ultimately better leaders within our business. Accountability. Part of that GS&R process, so those goal setting and review meetings, is holding accountability or holding tension on our goals. So are we able to hit those goals, and what happens when we do? Are we seeing results from that? Do we need to adjust our goals because what we've done is either not enough or it's too much? I don't think it's ever too much, but sometimes we do underplan to hit our goals. So what we want to do is really establish clear goals and clear performance metrics for everyone on our team. We're going to review those again in our GS&Rs, but you can call it whatever you want, a touch base meeting or a WIG, a check-in meeting. We're gonna review the results regularly with the team and provide coaching and not just correction. So a lot of times we fall into this, and I'm certainly guilty of it, fall into a pattern of just telling people what they're doing wrong, right? Hey, if you only said this during that meeting, maybe the result would have been different. A better approach, I think, and something again that at CertaPro we talk a lot about is catching people doing the right thing, right, and praising them for being on track, rewarding them for being on track with their goals. And I just think that that's something that's underutilized in a lot of leadership and management positions is telling people and celebrating those wins, celebrating when we're hitting milestones, even if we haven't got to that ultimate win. Hey, maybe we got that prospect to the next step, or maybe we're almost we're super close to closing a big commercial paint job, and all we need is 2 more milestones to get there. Let's celebrate that we're at this one. So that we're keeping everybody, again, motivated and using that discipline piece to keep them on track. So why do all these traits matters? Again, franchising offers a blueprint, as Mike mentioned, to do it. We offer you the 33 years, at least in our concept, of mistakes that we've made, that we've corrected, to build this systems and processes. And great leaders are going to step in and they're going to maximize those systems that are already in place. They're going to inspire their teams to get high performance out of them, and drive performance through the consistency and certainly through the culture of the team. Culture is something we talk about a lot here at CertaPro, along with our core values, right? How do we create this culture, and how do we spread that out? I oftentimes joke that we just have people drink the gold Kool-Aid, right? And then they're in, just like any other good cult. But really, it's built on our core values, right? It's delivering on what we promise. It's practicing continuous improvement, all of the things that make us that way, and we live by those, and that inherently helps build our culture here at CertaPro and with any business. So it's your job as a franchisee or as an independent business owner, whichever direction you look to go, to build that culture within your organization. So we've got a great one at CertaPro, but I would venture a guess that Earl's culture at his CertaPro business is different from what we've got here at the corporate office, right? And by design, right? That's Earl's business. That's not our business. Even though we're all CertaPro, he has his own specific things that he wants to hit while still hitting his overall, values going forward. So that's really why these matter. And guys, listen, a well-oiled machine, or a team, as it were, always starts from the top up, and you've got to have all of these little pieces kind of all the way through it to be effective. If you're leading effectively, the scoreboard or the volume of your business, your annual sales are going to be up. It's just a matter of how well you're leading that team and how well they're getting through. So again, I'll finish, I think, this section with our core values. I hope this is the last slide. I might be wrong. But our core values: we have pride in what we do, and we execute with excellence. Respect the individual, meaning we value everyone's ideas and their beliefs. Practice continuous improvement. That is my personal favorite of our core values, and making sure that tomorrow is better than today, right? That I'm doing a better job tomorrow and learning one thing to do better than I am. In Japanese, they call that kaizen, right? And perfecting an art, perfecting one specific portion of it. And I live by that daily. Deliver what you promise. Again, act with integrity, meet our commitments. It's about doing what you say you're going to do, period. And then embracing the possibilities is one that we've added over the last couple of years. And that's making sure that we're innovating in our brand and embracing on what's possible out there, specifically with the technology. All right, I joked earlier about AI never taking over our business. Who knows? Maybe they get a robot that uses AI that can cut lines straighter than we can. I don't know. So we embrace those possibilities and look at how we can incorporate that into our business. So I do have one more slide, final thought. With franchising, again, we're not reinventing the wheel by any means. We've spent 33 years perfecting that wheel, and what we want you folks to do, if you decide to join a franchise, is just learn how to build that same wheel and follow those systems and processes. But you will be leading the charge and keeping it moving. So that's what I've got as far as leadership, and I hope you got something out of that. I'm gonna open it up for a quick Q&A or stuff that you could ask yourself. Is what leadership qualities do you bring to the table? This is a good exercise just for the folks on the call to ask themselves what leadership qualities do you bring to the table that we had, and where do you want to grow? So again, starting with that end in mind, you can ask yourself those two questions, and that will help you decide on, again, what type of business you want to go into it, whether franchised, sole proprietor, or any other variations of that. And then, again, to help build your team accordingly. Are there any questions? Can I answer any questions right away on any of the leadership qualities or any of the leadership presentation? Awesome. That means I did an amazing job. All right. Well, let's get into franchising, as it were for us. So we're going to talk about first what's a franchise. Mike had given us a great definition at the beginning, and I'll just build on that. A franchise is a business model where an individual or franchisee operates a business using the systems and processes of an established company. What do you get out of a franchise? Again, the years of mistakes that they've already made and corrected, systems and processes. You also get brand recognition, right? A proven brand and a proven operating model. And with that, you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself, or you own your business, but you're not alone. Benefits of franchising, again, proven business model, brand recognition. You get the training and support, marketing tools and systems, and peer networking and community. I will tell you that the biggest thing that, in my mind, and Mike, I think you'll echo this, that you're buying from a franchise are their systems and their support systems. So how well are they there to support you on the operations side? Do they know what they're talking about? Are there folks or business consultants out there with you in your business, helping you on a day-to-day, on a week-to-week, month-to-month, quarter-to-quarter? Training, initial training. How much training are you getting on the front end of the business versus how much ongoing training are you getting? Are they just giving you 4 or 5 weeks of training and then saying, hey, good luck? Or are they following up on what they're doing and have more training as you go through? And then peer networking and community. So peer networking is something that we've, I think, taken to another level here at CertaPro with what we call our flight group program. A flight group program is where we get 4 to 8 franchise owners in non-competitive markets, so from all over the United States, that have similar sized businesses. And this group of franchise owners gets together generally once a month virtually, and then a few times a year they'll get together in person. They sort of act as each other's board of directors, if you will. So they're going to share not just best practices of their business. Hey, this marketing practice is working, or this one's not working so well, so we're pivoting. But they're also going to share everything up into and through their financials. Like, hey, here's my financials for the quarter. How is this benchmark against the rest of the group? And they act as each other's board of directors to help talk them through any of those issues that they're having or celebrate the successes. I think, and maybe Earl can attest to this is one of the best support programs we've ever put together at CertaPro. We've got trainings going almost every week here at the corporate office, but what the franchisees really talk about is how much help they're getting from their peers in this business. And that would be through our flight group program, or even before that, our forum groups, which is our franchisees that launch start in a forum group before they sort of graduate to that flight group. Let's go over a quick example of our business model with CertaPro. This is something that we refer to as the path. Gerald, I know you saw this the other day, so I'll be a little bit more brief on it. But this is basically a labor metrics and how to scale a business, how to scale our business appropriately. So there's a lot going on this slide, and I'll do my best to point some of this out. This legend is all of the employees you may have in a business, starting with a office associate, a production associate, residential and commercial sales associates, marketing associate on the residential and commercial side. And then as your business scales, you'll end up having VPs or vice presidents of sales or vice presidents of production, again, depending on how large you scale this business, and then an executive assistant at some point within the business. The good news with what you're buying with a franchise and specifically with CertaPro is already this operating model. So we know that once you reach this level of volume on this first step, that you're going to have the owner and probably an operations associate and a production associate in this business. We know that once you reach the second step, and that's a volume level here, that you're going to have 2 to 3 crews in your business and about 7 to 13 painters or subcontractors, along with an RSA, right? And it scales up all the way through to our top businesses. We don't put the dollar volumes on here because I don't want to accidentally do an earnings claim. What I can tell you that this scales up from literally zero at this first level all the way up to our top business that's doing, or did $18 million last year in business, and what they're looking at in their business with, 2 vice presidents and all this stuff going down, executive assistant, 65 to 75 painters within that business to make that business go. And really this is going to change wildly, I guess, across the different business modalities. So whether you're in home services, this is pretty stable for most concepts. But if you get into restaurant business, that labor metrics looks a whole lot different. Examples of brand recognition that we talked about in that first slide. We're all over all of these things. You probably recognize these logos going across the top of the screen, everywhere from Google to LinkedIn. So you recognize those right away just from their symbols. And then as you get in more, you'll see ESPN, NBC, ABC, all of these things going by. One of the things that we do at CertaPro that helps us with our brand recognition, also with our continuous improvement, is our Net Promoter Score. If you've never heard of Net Promoter, it's a way for businesses to track how their customers are thinking, and we do that through surveys. So we survey our customers after we've completed jobs with them, and ask them to rate us on what they liked about our business or what they didn't like, if they had successes or if they had any issues with their business, and that will generate a score. A ton of businesses use this: Apple, Ritz-Carlton, just to name a few that use these systems, this NPS scoring system, and they generally index right in the 60s, upper 60s is generally considered a really good company if they can index there. CertaPro, we right now are at 84.4 as our average NPS score across our system. And it's not unusual for us to see our franchisees indexing in the 90s. And what this does is this allows us to practice our continuous improvement, but get better in the eyes of the customer, the voice of the customer. What are they seeing? How can we solve those issues? And again, we're very proud of that 84 score that we've got across the system wide. Now, I will tell you that our business consciously made a change in that last year, and we decided, hey, how do we monetize this amazing score that we've got? Because the only person that sees that Net Promoter Score is us, because it's for us to improve. So we've changed our methodology. Now we're sending out Google reviews and Yelp reviews rather than sending everyone a Net Promoter Score or a Net Promoter Survey, which allows us to again turn those great scores into some form of marketing and advertising via the Google reviews or the Yelp reviews. And that's been pretty successful for us over the last call it year and a half. We've been doing that. So I'll give you a bit of the example of the training that we got and the support, because again, this is in my view sort of the crux of a good franchise system is how well are they supporting their franchisees. Our operations department is broken up into 4 different groups because we realize that the different levels of franchisees need different support. So we've got our launch folks, or they're in what we call our development phase, and they've got operations managers So our operations folks that are general managers that specialize in launching businesses and helping people that are just taking over resale businesses. So they need a different type of support after training than our next level, which is our scaling smart group. So you graduate from the development group of support and you get into our scaling smart. This group of operations folks do nothing more than help you scale your business appropriately and by the brand standards and also on what's appropriate for your business. Once you're through that, you get into our big shop group. I think our big shop group is everyone over 3.5 million. So our 3.5 million franchisees that are doing that much business, they need a whole different level of support, right? Their questions are much different than those folks that are in development. And finally, we've got our lighthouse group where they're lighting the way for us. Oftentimes they are trailblazing, right? On what support level we need. So we need some folks that are on the operations side that are much more nimble and can help these franchise owners figure out some of the new challenges that they're facing when they get up to the upper echelons of our brand. Aside from operations, it's also IT support. Every brand that's out there now has some level of IT involved in their business, whether it's just the POS system in front of them in, say, a restaurant that they've got to figure out. In our case, it's much more, right? We've got CRMs, we've got business intelligence tools, we've got estimating guides, we've got mobile estimating apps, we've got all kinds of technology that's out there to help our franchisees complete and do their jobs and to be successful. And we've got to have support that backs that up. And the last piece of it, I'm going out of order here, would be our marketing department. They're not the last; they're actually the first line of offense, as it were, of your business, and how they leverage the power of the brand. What that regional and local support looks like, and what those marketing plans look like. So we've got three basic levels in marketing, right? You've got your local stuff, and that's what our franchisees are responsible for executing. So your digital spend, your lawn signs, your door hangers, all the sort of blocking and tackling stuff that are going to drive people directly to your franchise. We've got the next level up is the co-op level. So that's at the DMA level where we've got all of our franchisees contributing dollars to a marketing co-op that are going to buy things like streaming television ads or TV ads or local radio, billboards, that sort of thing. And then the last is their general advertising fund or our GAF fund, which is our overarching fund where we can create TV commercials and we create all the collateral pieces that you'll need, the designing of them, producing the radio spots and all that stuff. So that's where our general advertising fund handles. So we've got three different direct tiers, one that our franchisees are responsible for, two that a group of franchisees are responsible for on the co-op level, and then we've got our corporate marketing department that are going to handle the rest of that and managing those relationships and also managing all of the production of excuse me, of the marketing materials. Oh, here's an example. You guys do that? I'm going to pause that because it's very choppy on my end. I can't imagine what it's coming through on there. But this is an example of one of the commercials and our system-wide programming that we've done. All the stuff that I just mentioned, so I won't spend a whole lot of time on this one. The peer networks and community. So peer networks we went over on terms of the flight group. Advisory boards is very important for a lot of brands, and here at CertaPro we're no different. We have our CertaPro Franchise Owners Association board that we meet with a couple times a year with our executives, and we go over the direction of the company. And then we get more specific with some of the advisory boards. So we've got a marketing advisory board that help our marketing department and advise them on what's working and what's not working out there, but also what direction are we going in on the marketing standpoint. Same thing with our technology, our technology group that has, again, representatives from our franchise body that are going to meet with our executives on our technology marketing, and then on the general board to help form the direction of the company and also inform them on where we're going and why. Flight groups we talked about, and peer groups. One thing that Kim will not let me without talking about is our two other groups that we've got. One is our WISE group, which is Women Inspired Success and Empowerment, women owners in business, which Kim does a lot with, and I believe chairs that group for us. So thank you for that, Kim. And then one that I'm very proud of that Kim also chairs, co-chair maybe when I show up to those meetings, which is our Veterans Resource Group. Veterans are something we take very seriously at this brand. More than 10% of our system are veterans, and we would like to attract more. They make phenomenal franchisees in our system. We recognize what that is, so we offer them a discount on our franchise fee, and then we have a resource group within our organization where our veterans can get together and again help each other out with anything that any issues or problems that they're having, or share best practices. And those are really the community for us, and we find a lot of value in those groups. So again, what are you really buying with a franchise? You're buying access to a recognized brand, or that brand recognition. You're buying a set of systems and procedures that are proven to work if followed. Ongoing coaching and performance tools with our support systems and our general managers of operations. You're also buying vendor relationships, right? We have a very strong strategic partnership with Sherwin-Williams, Benjamin Moore, and some of the other suppliers that we got, where we're able to leverage our buying power and get you better pricing on the things you'll need to make your business go. And then you're buying confidence, right? You're buying the confidence in the business that you're not starting it from scratch. You are following a blueprint or a set of systems and procedures on that. And with that, I'll take any questions in the chat, or you can ask, and feel free to ask me overall. But I will hand it over to Kelly if there are no questions. So I'll briefly pause for questions and then hand it over to Kelly.
Yeah, Adam, I have a quick question for you. So you mentioned multiple flight groups. I love that concept. Just having a peer network. We do the same thing at FranServe, and I find it really valuable. So they graduate from one flight group to the next when they hit certain, is it revenue benchmarks or something else?
So yeah, a couple of things. So we start with a forum group rather than a flight group, just what we call it. And these are folks that are all launching their business. So those groups tend to be a little bit larger, and you graduate out of that once you hit well, it is a revenue thing, but it's also when your general manager, when your operations representative recommends that you do so. So generally, that's an 12 to 24 months, we'll say 18 months being sort of average to get out of that forum group. And that's when you're eligible to join a flight group. So for flight groups, for us, we want to see that you've hit a certain dollar or revenue number, but we also want to make sure that you're scaling, right? So that you've got employees in your business. Excuse me. So those are the two things that it takes to get into a flight group. Now, once you get into a flight group, there are definite levels to that. So we've got a top tier, a middle tier, and I suppose a bottom tier. I hesitate to call it a bottom tier because you're already doing very well within our franchise business. But the point is that we want you to be with businesses that are of similar size to you, so that you're not, maybe I'm a $2 million business and I'm right at our average. I don't want to be in a group with a $20 million franchisee, because we have very, very different businesses and likely very different approaches to what we're doing, because we're in such sort of different phases of our business. So yeah, so they are like, or they're similar sized businesses. For example, the flight group that I facilitate, our revenues range anywhere from about 900,000 onto our biggest franchisee in my group. That'll do, almost $4 million this year. That's a huge range. However, the $4 million guy, he's not going to be in our group next year. He's moving on to a group that has bigger volumes, because he's going to get more out of that group, and quite frankly, they're going to get more out of him. So right now,
Oh,
he
that's
spends a
awesome.
lot of his time coaching some of the other guys up on, hey, I remember when I had that problem, and here's what I did. Where he's going to graduate up to the next group, where he may have a $10 million guy going, hey, I remember what it was like to only do 4 million. Let me show you what I did to help get me to the next level.
That's great. Thank you so much for the explanation, Adam. Great presentation. Appreciate all that great information. And up next is our financial funding expert, Kelly Kruger. Take it away, Kelly.
Well, thank you for the introduction, Mike. And I have to say, if anybody's watched me like smiling and talking off to the side while I was muted, the joys of working from a home office, I have a kitty cat over here that is doing like never before, trying to get my attention, talking to me, rolling over. I'm like, what are you doing to me right now? He really wants a belly rub, so it's pretty cute. But I've been I've been with Benetrends. I've been in this industry doing franchise funding for over 14 years, but Benetrends has been a leader in the franchise funding space and small business space for over 40 years, helping entrepreneurs just like you understand their funding options and develop smart capitalization strategies. So I have to go back and emphasize something that Mike said. I couldn't agree with you more, Mike, that it's so important when you're starting a business and building a business that you have a really good, solid team of professionals in place and on your side. You want that franchise attorney and that good CPA, and you want a good funding partner and an exceptional franchise and a franchise consultant. And you really want to set yourself up for success from day one. And so I also agree with you that I think it's really important to have a conversation with someone like myself very early in the process. We'll talk to you at any point in the process, but I think for most people, it behooves them to have the conversation early so that we can talk about all of the different assets that you have and your income and your credit and help you understand what all of your options are and determine the best fit for you. Because, you don't want to look at things that maybe are really without sort of outside of your bandwidth. Last thing you want to do is go undercapitalized into a business. That's the biggest reason people fail. So we want to make sure that you're overcapitalized. And you also don't want to shortchange yourself. If maybe you're interested in multiple units or multiple locations and you have the bandwidth to do it, maybe you don't realize that until you have a phone call with us. So we're always happy to talk to you real early in the process, even before you've started looking at a franchise or a business. And there's, let's see, how am I gonna, there we go. So I don't have enough time to go too in depth on anything today. So I'm just going to really go high level overview and cover the most common ways that people are funding franchises today. And truthfully, there's only two ways that you can fund a franchise. You can do it with debt, like a traditional small business loan. We call that SBA for short, or a home equity line of credit, or you can use equity. You can invest with cash or retirement funds. And of course, there's those lucky few that have family and friends that may invest with them or give them cash, or they find angel investors. And then, of course, you can do equipment leasing and fleet leasing if that's a fit for your business. And so there's a lot of different possibilities, and I'll touch on as many as I can, but I'm really going to focus most on SBA and retirement funding because those are the two most common things that we're seeing today. So SBA, for anybody that doesn't realize, that stands for Small Business Administration. They're just the government agency. They're not making the loan. The bank makes the loan. SBA is just the government agency that guarantees the loan to the bank, that if you default as the borrower, they will reimburse the bank a certain percentage of what they lent you. And there are certain parameters that the bank has to follow because of that to get that backed, that SBA backed guarantee. And these SBA loans can be used for startup franchises, or they can be used to purchase an existing franchise or an existing business. They range anywhere, like the smallest loan that we can do is 75,000, but SBA goes all the way up to 5 million. And they're typically 10-year loans. Unless you're purchasing real estate, then you're going to be able to stretch that out to 25 years. And they are tied to prime. And prime right now is 7.5%. So they start with prime and then they add to that. And they can add up to another 2.75. So the maximum rate that they can charge you today is 10 and a quarter. We always do want to see strong personal credit, 685 or better for anybody that's going to be on that loan. And if you're married, and especially if you're filing a joint tax return, even if you don't want the spouse on the loan, sometimes they will be required to be on it. But even if they're not, we still want to make sure that their credit is in good standing also. SBA is not going to fund 100% of that investment. They're going to typically fund somewhere between 80 to 90%, and then you will inject the other 10 to 20%. So you're going to have some skin in the game, sort of like a down payment on a mortgage. And your skin in the game will go towards paying the franchise fee. It's not going to be in addition to it. And they also don't want to take your last dollar, nor would you let them. They're going to want you to see that you have a rainy day fund. We call that post-closing liquidity. The rainy day fund is usually only about another 10% of the loan amount. So after you inject your portion, if you're borrowing 150,000, for example, then you're going to need about another 15,000 left over as a rainy day fund. And when it comes to collateral, a lot of that depends on the size of the loan and how well established the franchise or the business is. So if your loan is 350 or over, then the bank doesn't have a choice. SBA mandates to the bank that they capture collateral if it's available. They're always going to capture business assets first, and then they're going to look at your personal collateral. And they love equity in property. So if you have equity in your home or rentals, then they're typically going to put a lien on something if your loan's 350 or greater. If your loan is under 350,000, they do not have to have collateral, but sometimes they're still going to require it. And if you're working with a franchise that's well established, like CertaPro, that's been around for years and proven and very successful, then you're less likely to be asked for collateral. But if it's an emerging franchise and it's brand new and maybe there's only 5 or 10 of them open, then you're more likely to need to pledge collateral in that situation. So that's just kind of a quick overview of SBA. And with regards to timing, I'd be remiss if I didn't touch on that. SBA is not the fastest process. It is a little bit of a lengthy process, and in most cases, you can plan on a good 60 to 90 days to get you all the way through from the time you start to the time your loan is approved and you've got the money to operate the business. If it's brick and mortar and you've got build out, then oftentimes it can go longer than that. It can be 120 days or something. But again, for something like a CertaPro, sort of maybe a more of a home-based business, or you're just leasing out office space, you're probably going to be done in about 60 to 90 days. So I'm going to pivot from SBA. I know that was a fast kind of hit and run there, but I really want to spend some time talking about the ROBS plan. ROBS stands for Rollover as Business Startups, and we've coined that the Rainmaker plan at Benetrends. I still call it ROBS for short. That's the IRS terminology and the industry terminology. Most people have no idea that ROBS exist, but it's literally done thousands of times a year in the franchise industry. And we've been doing it for over 40 years. Benetrends actually pioneered the ROBS in conjunction with the IRS. So we know this inside and out. But ROBS, for those of you that don't know, it gives you the ability to take pre-tax retirement funds, like from your 401k, your IRA, your thrift savings plan. And instead of investing those retirement funds in the market and buying stock in someone else's company like Amazon, Coca-Cola, Facebook, which is what we do with our retirement funds, right? ROBS allows you the ability to invest those retirement funds in your own business instead and use them as operating capital. And it's not treated as a distribution. You do not pay taxes and penalties on that money when you do a ROBS. And it's also not a loan. The money does not ever have to be paid back to the retirement plan. Of course, you want to pay it back. And you will, and that's a whole nother conversation. But yeah, ROBS is really one of the most common ways people are funding franchises today. And when people come into a first phone call with me, when I'm kind of evaluating options for them, usually the first thing out of their mouth is, I don't want to touch my retirement funds. And typically they say that because they have no idea ROBS exist. And they think that if they use the retirement funds, they're going to pay 10% penalty for early withdrawal, and they're going to have to pay state and federal taxes, which for most people is about 30%. So if you take a distribution when you're under 59 and a half years old, most people are going to lose about 40% of that money. And we wouldn't recommend you do that either. Why would you want to? And you don't have to. So with ROBS, the way it's structured, the first thing that we do is we form a corporation, and that's going to be the operating entity that runs your business or your franchise. And then we're going to custom design a retirement plan that will make the investment into your business and purchase your stock. It's going to be a qualified retirement plan, either a 401k or an IRA. So just like you work for an employer and you contribute to their 401k plan, they have a company plan that you participate in with your own participant account. Your corporation is going to have its own retirement plan, and you're going to have your own participant account within it. And we typically set those up at Fidelity, so it's very mainstream. And then you're going to roll your retirement funds. You can roll from your 401k, your IRA. We can really use almost any type of plan. So I'll come back to that. We can use multiple plans for multiple people. So again, we can come back to all of that. But let's just say for simplicity, you're rolling $100,000 from an IRA. If you have 500,000 in that IRA, we don't need all of it. If you want to just invest 100,000 in the business, then we're just going to do a direct rollover 100,000 from that IRA to that new retirement plan at Fidelity. And once the money's in the new Fidelity retirement plan, instead of investing that back in the market and purchasing stock in Amazon or Coca-Cola, you're investing it in your corporation and purchasing your stock. So it's through that stock purchase, the money leaves Fidelity. It gets wired out to your corporate bank account, which you open anywhere you want. And once the money's in the bank, now it's operating capital from the sale of that stock. It's cash. You've got $100,000 cash sitting in your corporate bank account. And that money can be used for absolutely any business expenses. So you pay the franchise fee, you buy inventory, you lease an office space. You can even use that money to pay yourself a salary day one as soon as we get it set up. That's very common. We have a lot of people that are in between, right? They in between jobs. They've been discarded from corporate America, and many of them don't even want to go back. That's why they're looking for other opportunities for themselves. So we have a lot of clients that will roll over additional retirement funds so they can start paying themselves right away. While that business ramps up. So Rob's gives a lot of flexibility to you as well. And it typically only takes us about 4 weeks from the time we start the process to the time those funds are available in your corporate bank account that you could use it. So it's pretty fast. And there's an awful lot of more benefits to it as well. And one of the biggest benefits is that you're investing money in your business that hasn't been taxed yet. And most of us are in pretty high tax brackets. So if you think about that, you're getting thousands of dollars of your own money to invest in your business day one, instead of just paying that to Uncle Sam in taxes, that's a massive benefit right there. And some people will fund their entire business with Rob's and go in debt free. You're obviously going to be profitable faster if you do that. You're not saddled with monthly payments back to the bank, but a lot of our clients will combine Rob's with a small business loan, SBA loan, or home equity line of credit. You can literally combine Rob's with anything, even cash. So it's a really interesting way and a flexible way to fund the business. And something that I wanted to circle back to real quickly, we can use multiple types of accounts. We can use almost any type of retirement account. The few exceptions, we cannot use inherited IRAs if they're inherited from like a family member that passed away. We cannot use Roth IRAs. We can use Roth 401ks, but not Roth IRAs. And if your retirement plan's tied to your employer and you're not planning on quitting that job, about 70% of the time we cannot access those funds unless you quit. But that still leaves about 30% of the plans that I run across that can be accessed for Rob. So that's easy enough to check on to see if it's a possibility. But not only can we could pull from multiple types of plans, we can pull from multiple people. So if you have spouse and maybe one spouse has a 401k, one has an IRA, they can both roll over and invest funds, and the same thing with business partners. And I touched on this, but Rob's plus SBA is a real common strategy for people doing franchising. And some people will use Rob's just to cover the cash injection and the cash reserve. Not everybody has 50,000 or 100,000 or 200,000 in liquidity sitting around in the bank to put towards a business, but a lot of people have money sitting in retirement funds. So you can use it as the cash injection, or some people will split it 50-50 and do half Rob's and half SBA loan, for example. So that way they feel like they're not putting all of their eggs in one basket. They're kind of splitting their risk up. So again, a lot of times it's multiple options. It's just a matter of understanding what your options are. And I'm just going to touch on these three real quick. I'm going back to debt. If you're going to borrow money, some other common options if you're looking to avoid SBA, because again, it's a lengthy process. A home equity line of credit. I think everybody knows that you can do that. If you have a good amount of equity in your home, you can pull a line of credit. And truly, that's fast and easy to do. And the rates are a little bit less than SBA also. So there's certainly some pros to to HELOCs, and there's some pros to SBA. And again, that's where a conversation with someone like myself, we can talk you through the pros and cons of everything to help you make a real educated decision on what's going to be the best fit for you. But HELOCs, we don't do them at Benetrends. You would just go to a mortgage provider, but they're very fast and easy in most situations. Portfolio loans, if you have money in the market, non-retirement, not 401ks, not IRAs, just maybe, a brokerage account, stocks and bonds in the market with Edward Jones, you have over $100,000 in an account. Oftentimes you can borrow against that. A lot of people don't realize that you can do it, but it's a lot like taking a HELOC. You don't have to sell off your investments. You can keep that money in the market working for you. They're just using your account as collateral and lending you against it. I love portfolio loans, and you don't need us to do that either. You just work with your brokerage firm, but they're really fast and easy. And sometimes the rates are better than SBA, sometimes they're not. Just depends how much money you have in the account. But that's fast and easy. And then lastly, participant loans. If you are working for an employer and you're contributing to their 401k or 403b, TSP, oftentimes you can borrow, most of the time, you can take a loan against that account and borrow up to 50% of the balance that you have in the account, the vested balance, not to exceed $50,000. And that's very, very fast and easy to do. And all three of these options can be used as the cash injection and cash reserve to qualify for SBA. If you already have a HELOC, great, you can use it. We don't necessarily promote you go out and get a new one, because sometimes that can derail the SBA process. But if you already have the HELOC, you can use it. So again, I think I know that I went through this very quickly, but hopefully it gives you kind of a feel for some of the common options that are available, and realizing that it doesn't just have to be one thing. It can be a variety of things, and we will customize that based on your personal situation. So I'm always happy to do a one-on-one call with anybody that needs it. And if you need a pre-qualification to give to a franchise or someone that you're looking at, we can certainly do that for you as well at no cost and no obligation. So
Thank you, Kelly.
that's
And
it.
as someone that has worked with you for many years, Kelly is the best. He is just shows up for every call that you schedule. She finds great solutions, even if it's not a product that is offered by Benetrends, which is probably that trust is why I've been working with her so long. So thank you so much for all the information. I think anyone that works with you will get a great benefit. And now we're going to transition over to the main event, Earl Gelano, who's going to tell us about his CertaPro business. So Earl, I don't know if you have slides or if you're just going to kind of shoot from the hip, but the floor is yours, my friend.
My slides are with you. If you're in control of the slides right now, is that you? Oh, that's
That's
Adam. Then
Adam.
you could stay where you are, Adam, and keep on going. Because there you go. Technology is not my friend, and I'm in a franchise world. Um, so my lovely family, my wife Jennifer, my two sons Jake and Nick. I play a lot of golf. I'm not very good, but I play a lot of golf and I enjoy it. I've been in franchising. What's that?
Said you don't have to be good to enjoy it.
You don't. Can everyone hear me well?
Yeah.
All right, good. So I've been in it for 25 years. I started with CertaPro in 2000. Before that, I was with Sherwin-Williams from 94 to so 6 years with Sherwin-Williams, 12 years of painting with my dad in a contracting business in the 80s. So I've either been applying paint, selling paint, or running a paint company 25, 35, 36, 37, 43 out of my 54 years. So since age 11, I've been in the paint industry. I don't recommend that. You don't need to do that. There are doctors in this franchise. There are dentists. There are lawyers. There are marketing people. There are engineers. And if you're an engineer, great. I don't know how engineers get along in life because they're so precise, but it works for them. So I'm going to start with my story a little bit. I bought an existing business. At the time, it was one of the largest in the country. It was doing $400,000 in sales. That's it in 2000, 405. And it was considered a pretty big business. We were there in the beginning when there wasn't a lot of staff because royalties were not really a thing yet. They were and they weren't. So there's one IT person. You maybe talk to someone maybe once a month at corporate. But as the business grew, corporate staff could grow, much more supportive now, much better for people growing big profitable businesses quickly versus slowly. It took us forever to go from like a million something to 2 million. Now new franchisees are doing that in 3 years, 2.5 sometimes. Shoot, one time almost 1 year. It's much easier to grow now. Back then, there was no background check. There was no financial check. We bought an existing business with a $10,000 line of credit and a credit card. And that's it. I don't even know how we ran the business. If we applied today, we wouldn't be approved, to be honest with you, at all. We had no right buying a franchise. It worked out because it had to. And maybe that's a good thing. There's a lot more and that's Gerald and David. So Gerald and David, you're on the call today. You're very important because you're the only two people. That's it. Not only are you vetting us, I'm vetting you. Because if you buy a turf, whether it's in Jersey, California, or Massachusetts, my name's on it. Because when someone moves from Rhode Island to Jersey and they call you to do work for them, they're going to expect not the same style, but the same quality and the same professionalism from you as they got from me. So when you buy your business, my value of my business goes up. I don't want slouches. I don't want people that are going to bring my name down. We don't need that. CertaPro can be very selective now, which is nice. Back then, if you had a pulse, you're in. Period. Now it's a lot different and it's a lot better.
So, Earl, can you tell us a little bit about how your business is running now? The next slide is some of your financials. Are you comfortable sharing that?
Yeah, don't go to there yet because people look at numbers. They don't care about anything else. So I started out, it was me and a business, me and a partner, just two of us. He was sales, I was OA and PA. So really a two-person office, right? Like anybody. And then what I noticed over the years was whenever I added staff, that was the biggest thing. So when you had the right staff. So after the OA and then me and Chris, then we had an RSA. So we had an RSA, Chris was doing commercial sales, I was managing production and the OA. And you go from that four to 8 or 900. And back then, 8 or 9, you had like almost 4 staff members or 3.5 staff members. And then you get to that 1, 2, 1, 3, and now you're at 5 staff members back then. Now it's 2 to 3 people at 1.2 million, right? Because as an example, as a new owner, if you're doing $1.2 million with you and one person, you're making a pretty good living. But once you try and grow to that 1.5, that next year you make a little less, but then you make a little bit more. So it's kind of like that. So right now, we'll fast forward this year, we're planning to do about 7 million with about 11 associates. And because we're a seasonal business, probably 65 to 75 painters, which equates to about 15 job site supervisors, of which I have employees and subcontractors. So I have 3 employee crews, so 6 painters plus 2 carpenters full time. And then I have the rest are sub crews. So we have a mix of both. And we do that for a couple of reasons. When you're in the world of prevailing wage, federal work, state work, it's good to have employee crews. And then for the busiest of the season, it's good to have that subcontractor network. Gerald and Dave, why don't you get off speakerphone, because it's easier to tell my story if I know what you need.
Gerald, you want to come off mute? And
Yeah, you guys can
any
ask
questions?
questions. It's easier if you ask questions, then I can kind of tell you where we're at. And you can ask, I tell everyone, any question you want. I don't care. Don't be shy.
I didn't really necessarily have any questions. I was just kind of excited just to listen. But yeah, I mean, I would love to hear more about whether you think that maybe whether it's CertaPro or other franchises, if you think that it's benefited you to be part of a partnership with, you and your friend, or just going at it alone?
So at the time, that's a good question, David. So at the time, I left Sherwin-Williams. He left Sherwin-Williams. Had a wife home not working with a 6-month-old baby, and we just bought a new house. Perfect timing, right? Screw it. Leave corporate America, leave a pretty good paying job, and just go, I'll do that. My wife was freaked out, but we did have Blue Cross Blue Shield, so that's all she cared about. And we made it work. I did it with a business partner because I had a young family. He had no kids. I wasn't going to work weekends. I was going to work Monday through Friday. He was going to do weekends for sales. Could I have done it alone? Yes. The timing of it wouldn't have worked. I tell you this, Chris Wheeler was my business partner's name. He actually ended up going to work for CertaPro Corporate for a while. And now he went went into another CertaPro franchise, and he's still in the painting world. He's just not with CertaPro anymore. I'm the godfather of his kid. He's the godfather of one of mine. I bought him out. It was good for him and good for me. It all worked out. I'd say if you don't need a partner, then if you don't need a partner, if you need someone because you feel better like that, then do it. Your turn, Gerald.
Oh, I'm just waiting on the numbers. Sorry.
Oh, he wants the numbers. He wants the numbers.
Let me share again.
Yeah,
Sorry.
go show him the numbers. Everyone wants to see the numbers.
Your background was really interesting. I was the same way. I was really enjoying just hearing some of the history, some of your experiences with the company, and so it was really interesting. So I was just kind of taking it all in.
Okay. So there you go. 2020 to 2025. 2025 is obviously year to date as of, I think this was March. Kim, March. As of March 2025.
So you can see a couple things on here, guys, and Earl, if you don't mind, I'll take them through some of this
Absolutely.
stuff. Yeah, sort of residential, commercial, got the lead numbers coming through here, and obviously down through revenue on this line down here. Then he's got it broken down, again, residential versus commercial work. You can see that he's got a very healthy mix of both residential and commercial as it relates to revenue. I assume that it wasn't always such a commercial mix. Is that right? Earl, you started off with mostly res?
We were a weird business. We were always like 50-50.
Mm.
A lot of condo work in Rhode Island. So we were always 50-50. And then the last, as you can see from basically in 2021, commercial said screw it and started to triple, and then it grew 1 million, grew 100,000 last year. We're probably going to do 5 million commercial this year, and probably 2.1, 2.2 res, so maybe 7.3 this year. Res will grow comfortably. It'll stay flat or grow comfortably. If you notice, res never really goes backwards much or forward much. It grows slightly, which is nice. Commercial, in 2024, we finished up a $1.4 million project for Woonsocket Housing, which had nothing to do with painting, but like maybe of the 1.4, 200,000 was painting, and the rest was carpentry. It just happened to land in our laps. So you never know in the commercial world, it grows so quickly. It can also be scary with receivables because you have a lot of money out there. So you have to make sure you're doing the right commercial and also the right residential. We fire between 1 and 3 clients a year residentially and 4 to 5 commercially every year. We let them know we can no longer work for them. It's a relationship that's not working for both of us. Because either A, they're not treating us properly, or they're just too slow to pay. Yeah. So if you're not firing customers every year, you're probably you're not meant for this business, to be honest.
David put up a question in the chat asking what slippage is.
Slippage is basically when we get example of 100 leads come in the door in May, 100 residential leads come in May, and we do 85 of them. That's 15% slippage. 15 people that wanted an estimate didn't get it. Now, of that 15, 3 might be scheduled for next month. So there's still slippage until we actually go on them. and the other 12 may never call us back. They called us once, and then they said, screw it, we're going to do it ourselves, or they went with someone else. We didn't get to them fast enough. Sometimes we don't get back to them fast enough, and that's our fault. That's slippage. And it happens in every business. The lower, the better.
Yeah, I don't want to get too far into the weeds with that, Earl.
Yeah.
But there are, yeah, I will say this, there are some lead sources, as Earl knows, that have just inherently have a higher slippage rate, meaning we get a lead in, but we never get in front of them to do an estimate. And those would be, in our case, would be like the lead aggregating sites, like a Angie lead or a Home Advisor, Home Solutions, one of those where they're sending that lead to every painting company that pays them money. So in that case, speed to lead and how fast we get to it and same day estimates, those are some strategies we'll employ to help lower that slippage rate, but inherently some of those sources do just have a higher slippage rate because of the nature of how we got it.
Yep. I tell you what, the biggest thing in this business, and I'm glad, Adam, you had a leadership part to it now, because the hardest part for me is leading without doing. Trying to, and I don't, guys, I've never been the smartest guy in the room. I'm always willing to listen. I'm always learning new things. And it's hard sometimes to kind of let them out of the nest and fail completely. And then when they come back, you're like, yeah, that's okay. We all failed. We've all lost money on paint jobs. It's not the end of the world. We're not going to make all our profit on one job. We're not going to lose all our profit on one job. And that happens. But we have a really good staff. We have 4.5 people on the commercial side. And I'll say 5.5 on the res side. And that half a person is the office person that kind of does a little bit of work for both. And that person this year became my wife. She actually she was a teacher's aide for about 17 years in the school system, which served us well for the healthcare, which served us well for our kids. But the school's gone to absolute garbage, the red tape and everything. So she had to get out. So she's come to work for us, which everyone loves because, very easily she can say, no, Earl, stop that. I also recommend when you are working with people and you hire people, you have to hire people that can say no to you. So if everyone's afraid to say no to you, your business will not grow. It's going to grow as big as you want it to grow, not as big as your staff.
Mm-hmm.
A good example of that is that when Socket Housing Job came to us, they said, we don't want to bid that. That's not for us. Dustin brought it back to me. We bid it. We came in too late. We didn't have enough paperwork, whatever it was. We missed that round. Everyone bid it. Someone won it. They were thrown out. They weren't qualified. Came to us a third time. We bid it. We landed it, and it was the most profitable, most successful job we've ever done. And I didn't want to do it because I was uncomfortable with a job that size. So you've got to have people in your business that are willing to think outside the box or think outside where you're willing to think. Flight groups are, I'm sorry, Adam.
I'm sorry, I was going to ask you another question. Finish your thought, and then I want to move on.
Flight groups are the most important thing to us. We had a group as big as 8, and now it's at 5 right now. We just brought a new person into our group who's starting in January of next year. And our business has run from 3.2 to 7 million. And that's okay. Like, I know Adam said everyone's trying the same size. Staff is more important to us than the size. So the smallest 3.2 million business has a staff of 5 and growing. And then we have one with a staff of 16. So it's like, that's okay because we're all going through the growing pains. But it really is like a board of directors, but they're going to be brutally honest with you. So like if you're looking to buy into business like a franchise, but then you want to do everything your own way, don't buy it. Just open up David's Painting and go to it, right? I could have did that. My dad was in the painting industry for 12 years. I worked for Sherwin-Williams for 6. I had 18 years experience. There's no way I would have grew this quick and this fast as Earl's Painting. So, or whatever franchise you're looking at. So if you're not going to listen to it and follow what they say, it's good advice. Don't buy it. Don't spend your money.
Great.
It's
That was actually going to be my question, Earl, so that's awesome.
Hey guys, I know we're kind of coming up on our time. Earl, thank you so much for all the detailed honesty and kind of open forum for questions. I know we kind of have an open Q&A. Gerald, David, any other questions you have for Earl or the group before we wrap up?
Yeah, I asked the most general question, like what's a day in the life? What's a typical work day for you, Earl?
I would say within the first 3 years of business, it was 11 hour days, Monday through Friday, couple hours, 2, 3 hours on Saturday. That was the first 1 to 5 years. Maybe that was 1 to 3 years. Then it was maybe more like 45 hours a week during the week. Every now and then a Saturday to help out. Now it's Monday through Friday. Thursdays I'm done at 2 because I golf every Thursday at 2, 9 holes. But it's Monday through Friday and it's maybe 7 hour days. And then Thursday is done at 2. Now I'll still do a kickoff. I'm a field guy. I'm a painter by nature. Like that was taught by my dad. So that's my first thing is to go to production to problem solve. And I love seeing the guys. Some of these guys have been with us for 20, God. Mike Peralt, who's down the hall, has been with this business longer than I've owned it. He's 27 years with Certapro.
Wow.
So what are
So-
some things that how do you keep your team motivated? How do you keep a guy like that around for 20 years?
Can't get rid of him. No. Mike was a supervisor. He was in the field as a painter. He always told me he loved the autonomy of being on his own. He was his own boss in the field. That was his job. He owned it. I didn't babysit him. I didn't teach him how to paint. He knew how to paint. I taught him our service standards, how our job sites are set up for success, how they look a little cleaner, a little bit more presentable, how our guys aren't rough around the edges, how when the homeowner asks a question, this is how you answer it in a polite way without knowing the answer. And he liked that. Income is obviously important. I would say we pay based on how successful you are. So everyone's based on gross margin dollars here. No one's not. Yes, everyone has salaries, but then everyone gets paid on gross margin dollars of produced work. So when the whole team grows, everyone makes a little bit more money too. Then if we hit certain tiers, everyone in the business gets a little something. We also treat our people with respect. We value their time, meaning, example, Pam this week, she's in the summer because her kids are home and her childcare is gone. Tuesday and Thursday, she works from home. She probably gets more work done on Tuesdays and Thursdays than she does Monday, Wednesday, and Friday when she's here. But we know she's getting her stuff done. So people value that. We do a lot of like lunches in the office. We do a lot of birthday. We have a thing with the birthdays and everyone gets a birthday cake. And we feel like we treat everyone with a lot of respect. And I know you guys had your core principles and those are some of ours too, but we have another one that says you have to have fun. If you can't have fun, don't be here. Literally, Southwest, right? If you can't joke at yourself, don't be here. So we ride each other a lot with jokes and it's a good time. If you're in my office, if you're not laughing, you're not in my office. Like there's a meeting going on down the hallway and at least 17 or 18 cackles have come from it. Like you have to. This business is very intense when it gets busy. Very intense. And in being in New England, you've got from April 15th to December 1st to produce about $6 million in work, maybe almost $7 million in work. You don't have 12 months a year. This is in California. They're all laid back out there. Like this is land it, produce it, and customers want it done yesterday. Even though they haven't landed it yet, they want it started. Like that's how it is. So it's very intense. You've got to be able to laugh at yourself and hire the right people, right? You can't. Biggest thing I ever got from a flight group, I'll share this now, was I was sitting at a meeting going, I can't afford to hire Dustin. Works for Sherwin-Williams, makes good money. He's the #1 sales rep for Sherwin-Williams in the country. He's in the Boston market. He's dealing with guys that buy $1 million in coatings a year. He was my rep before that. I missed my opportunity. And one of corporate staff, Rich Volp, said, you can't afford not to hire him. That day I went home, I sent him an offer letter. I took a pay cut that year of $20,000 and I hired Dustin. And it's the single most point in my business that turned my $900,000 commercial business to now it's going to do 5 million, of which 4.2 is him. 4.5 is him.
Awesome.
And you could ask Adam, 4.5 million commercial guy, that's not normal. Maybe 2 in the country.
I think
So-
there's only one.
It might be only one, but it's 1 or 2. But that's like those are like, you got to be able to know that I'm a pretty good commercial guy. I'm pretty good residential, pretty good in production. I've got people that are better at all of them than I could ever be. And that's the number one thing.
Thanks.
So,
Well, thank you guys so much, Earl. Really appreciate all your insights,
Yeah.
and you guys can probably connect after the fact. I know we need to stick to our schedule. I wanted to thank Kim Heidecker. Kim, am I pronouncing your name right? All right, Kim, thank you so much for putting this all together. Thanks, Adam. Thanks, Kelly. I know she had to go. Earl, thank you so much. David and Gerald,
Yeah.
thanks for being our primary guys here, kind of listening in. And this will be available, I believe, on YouTube, or we'll get a link to it. So I'll wrap anything up. Kim, Adam, anyone else want to add anything before we adjourn?
No,
you guys,
oh, go ahead, Earl.
no, Adam, you go.
I was going to thank Earl for showing up and for talking all
Showing
the
up.
things that we can't say that you can say. I think it's amazing. Kim, obviously,
I'll-
for putting it together, and Mike, yeah, you guys are great. Thank you so much.
A lot of
I'll
fun.
leave Gerald, David, you didn't ask me this, but gross margin roughly around 43.5, 44, give or take. I'm not 45. I'm not higher than this. It's just my market. Sometimes it's 42, but EBITDA at the end of, I skip EBITDA net at the end of the day is not 15. It's more like 11 and a half to 12. But on 7 million, you can do the math.
I can't do the math, but they can. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's after I pay myself. So yeah. EBITDA is probably
Awesome.
more like 14. But yeah, it's
Well, Earl,
real.
congrats,
not fake.
congrats on all that success. That's a huge business, and it's it's nice these guys looking to come in can aspire to build a business like this. But Earl did not do this overnight. I mean, he told you
No.
about the story. It takes a lot of time, a lot of support, a lot of collaboration, a lot of grit, determination, hard work, all that stuff. But you can get there, which is really inspiring. So thank you, Earl. Kim, if any closing thoughts?
I just want to thank everybody for coming on board, and we actually had some people come on and off throughout the entire call, so it's going to benefit a lot of people out there. We're super excited. So thank you all for your time.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Great.
All right,
All right.
have a
Thanks a lot,
great
guys. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye.